There's a scene in the book of Exodus that often causes me to wonder. In the narrative, God has already sent Moses back to Egypt to set his people free. Aaron has been enlisted due to Moses' discomfort as a public speaker. When they appear before Pharaoh, they perform a sign by throwing Aaron's staff to the ground, and it becomes a snake. Yet we're told Pharaoh then summoned wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same thing by their secret arts. Now, Aaron's snakes follows up their snakes, but that's beside the point. Later in the same chapter, we're told of Aaron stretching out his staff over the Nile, and it turns to blood. But the Egyptian magicians did the same things by their secret arts. Sometime later, Aaron held his hand over the Nile, and a plague of frogs arose from it, filling the country. Yet again, we're told that the magicians did the same thing by their secret arts. They also made the frogs come up on the land of Egypt. It's not until the plague of gnats occurs that the magicians hit their ceiling. When the magicians tried to produce gnats by their secret arts, they could not. Of course, their power is limited, but how do you explain their capacity to perform miracles? Now, obviously, it's tied to their secret arts, but that's not really an explanation. In 1 Kings 18, we read of Elijah's showdown with the 450 prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. We're told of them calling out all morning, but to no answer. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice, but there was no response, no one answered, no one paid attention. Now for us, the reader, the reason is obvious. Baal's not real, and fake gods don't answer. In 1 Corinthians, Paul explains that there's nothing inherently wrong with eating food sacrificed to idols, because in chapter 8, we know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, and that there is no God but one. That's true as far as it goes. But clearly the Egyptian magicians were tapping into something such that for a time they could do what Moses and Aaron could. That theme seems to be taken up again in Revelation, as we saw last week. Speaking of beast number 2, John says, and it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of people. Now, I mentioned a connection to Pentecost last week, but there's an even closer connection. In Revelation 11, we met the 2 olive trees, the 2 lampstands, who were witnesses, from whom fire came from their mouths and could shut up the heavens and strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. Now, the fact that the beast could do these things shouldn't cause us to think that the sides are in any way even. Just because the beast had power doesn't mean it is in any way equal power to that of the Father, Son, and Spirit. What this should remind us is there is a battle going on. Just because Baal and certain idols aren't real doesn't mean none of it is. Well, Paul says in 1 Corinthians that idols aren't real things. 2 chapters later, he claims that the sacrifices of pagans are offered to demons. Let us not be fooled or deceived into false comfort. There is a battle raging. May God give us eyes to see. Have a blessed week.